AI in Action is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Our host brings you the leading minds in AI, sharing their story, their success, and their advice. Focusing on fast-tracking you to the top, AI in Action cuts through the hype to help you kickstart your data science career. To listen to the latest AI in Action podcast, head over to www.alldus.com/podcast or subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Podcasts.
You're listening to AI in Action. I'm your host, JP Valentine. Our guest today is Narine Hall. Narine is the founder and CEO of Inspace Proximity. Narine, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. Narine, so let's start with yourself. Can you talk us through your background, where you first got started with technology, some of the roles you've held along the way, and take us up to the recent founding of Inspace?
Yes, I think I really started with technology when I was in fourth grade. I was really obsessed with the concept of hacking and just sort of building programs and just kind of doing funny things and pranks in school. You know, I went to school, studied applied math. That was really fun. And later on, I sort of got into programming and started with web development, which I found like it's really rewarding to start with web development because it's very quickly you can see the results and it's like really fun to create things. And then continued, got into master's degree for computer science. And at that point, I really started getting interested in complex systems, and complex systems are really fun where like the idea is that the sum of the items is not always equal to total because you have the interactions in there. And I started studying networks and different things. And of course, at this time, data science was not quite as trendy and popular. So it wasn't really the name that people would just talk quite a bit. And I think one time we're having this conversation and my professor mentioned about data science. And I was like, that's exactly what I'm doing. And it's like so much fun. So it was really fun. It was just a perfect timing. And when I graduated with PhD, that's kind of when sort of it was really trending topic and everybody was talking about it. And I started working as a data scientist. I was at IBM Watson, which was really fun. And one of the things was like I was always fascinated with the fact of automated my own jobs, which was kind of quite nice. Like in college, I had this job where I would do research for patents. It was kind of sort of a side thing to do. And I wrote this program that would automatically analyze the text and find the relevant content from context. And then I would just run this code to do what I was supposed to do, which was like really fun. So after that, I realized I love working in entrepreneurial sort of environments. I worked in early startups, kind of really love that atmosphere of creativity and sort of flat landscape where everything is sort of possible. And I realized I was really enjoying this concept of wearing different hats depending what you need to do. And that sort of is really fun for data science. I think it's really great where you have an intersection of multiple disciplines and you can sort of just, one day you're sort of thinking about the business side of the problem, and then you're thinking statistics and math, and then coding and actually programming everything. And then how do you communicate that and sort of kind of more strategically? So it's really fun being able to wear different hats.
I appreciate you talking us through your background and how you were doing components of data science before the phrase was coined, and then you pursued that. So taking us up to now, Inspace Proximity, your recently formed organization, can you give us an overview of what Inspace does, the origins behind it, and what an insane few months you've had since founding the business?
In March, when we all moved to virtual learning, it was really interesting time period because, I teach at Champlain College and I started a data science program there. And one of the things that I always did was like I always had my content online. So I felt very comfortable moving to virtual education in March. However, when we sort of had that first class in virtual space, I remember recalling it was like there's this awkward interaction moment where like, you just couldn't have like those vibrant conversations that were in physical spaces that we had before. And the teamwork just became a nightmare of managing between rooms and everything in like Zoom. And I remember this time thinking, it's just not clicking quite as well. The reward of teaching was just not quite there in virtual space. So at that point, I was sort of thinking about how do we actually make this work? And so the idea of Inspace came, and the whole goal there was, how can we have a better virtual video conferencing platform that actually supports the same interactions and the same kind of teamwork and collaborative nature that we have in, physical spaces. And that's kind of where it all started. It was in August. We wrote our first line of code. Actually, my co-founder is from Armenia. I called her and I said, look, I have this idea and I think we can do better with teaching if we had better tools. And so, of course, her first reaction was, she said, so you want to build something better than Zoom and Google Meets in a month? Is that correct? And I said, well, I think we can do it. And, she, of course, thought I'm absolutely crazy. But the truth was we were both excited about the concept and we just started working on it. And the next thing we know, we had 7 to 10 engineers join us and we're just coding around the clock. It was very inspiring. We just created the minimal working product and we're just like, really just playing in the space and just it felt great feeling connected. In September, this was like only a month after we started working on this, we had our minimal working product and I sent it to one of my colleagues. I was like, hey, check this out. And she just loved it and she started forwarding to others. And, it just sort of spread like wildfire in the college. And the next thing I know, the president called me and he was like, hey, I don't know what Inspace is, but everybody's talking about it and everybody wants it. Like, what's going on? And, we basically started and, Champlain College was the first client that signed up, and we started working with the college on the beta pilot program. And then it started spreading to other colleges. And then a lot of faculty started reaching out to us and just saying, we absolutely have to use it. And we're like, we're still in beta. Are you sure that's what you want? And they said yes. And so now we are actually coming out of beta and we're in 53 colleges. And it's been a really crazy and fun ride just being able to scale and grow so fast as a company.
Yeah, it's been incredible. It's certainly gone viral since the early users for people who are in your own network. And I think it's important to highlight you also are an assistant professor and program director for data science at Champlain College. So this was something you created to use yourself and then shared with some colleagues, and then it's subsequently grown rapidly. To help people visualize the core differences between Inspace and other video platforms which you mentioned, I've certainly used it and I can see the dramatic difference and how it could impact virtual and online learning. But for anyone who's not used the platform yet to play around, can you explain it in layman's terms how different it is and how it's much more supportive for the online education environment?
Absolutely. So as an educator, one of my objectives was I wanted my students to feel in charge of their experience. I wanted them to feel agency over their experience in virtual space. And so what we have done, we actually have each person has a video circle. So imagine your video, but you can actually click on it and you can move it around the space anywhere you want to be. So every person just moves anywhere they want to be. And it feels like you're naturally just like in physical spaces, you're getting to places and you're going to places. And the magic about Inspace is that there's proximity-based audio. And so what this means is when the video circles are close to each other, you can talk to people and engage with them and have conversations. As the video circles move away, the sounds go down so people can go find other conversations. And people get to decide when they get too close to someone and have a conversation and when they want to move away and, talk to others. So this was like one of the key features when we realized that what's really important for connecting in physical spaces is that ability to just get close to someone and have a conversation and then move away. And that's how we do like teamwork, right? So like in my classroom, I would always have students in different parts of the room and I would just stop with different groups and have a conversation and guide them to the right direction and then just continue. And if a student had a question, they could just come close to me and ask that question. And this is exactly what happens in Inspace. Like as students are working in different teams, they just bring their circle close to me and we have a conversation. And one of the key things here is the student engagement. And if you ask anybody who's teaching virtually right now, one of the biggest struggles is keeping students engaged. So a lot of times students will turn off their cameras and they'll be on mute and they're sort of taking the role of a listener rather than a participant. And this happens because, say, for example, in Zoom, one person talks and everybody else listens. And if somebody has a question, then everybody else have to listen to the answer of that question, even though they might have not had that question. They're already past that point. And so what happens, students start disengaging, and then it's harder to engage them back into the content. what happens in space, you basically have all this space that people utilize, and you can have multiple conversations in the same space. So I can have a one-on-one conversation with a student while everybody else continues working in the teams. But I also have that social cue of where everybody is on the space, because I can see their video circles, I can see where they are, and I can even see that they are talking because there's a high-low next to their circle. But at the same time, I can just have that one-on-one conversation with the student. So that's really the key difference, like being able to see where socially and mentally students are in the physical space through this idea of moving your video circle anywhere you want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think given the nature of how education has shifted, and obviously the challenges of doing things fully remote, there's a massive need for a solution like this. So talk to us about what the plans are, because obviously it's been quite an exciting few months, but you're only just getting started, and this is a product that could easily be utilized by every education organization globally at all levels, from university down to elementary. So how have you got the product to where it is to date? What was the data and engineering challenges? But then bigger picture, what's the journey like? And most importantly, what does Inspace Proximity look like post COVID, when we now can start to visualize life after lockdowns?
So I think this was really interesting, the way Inspace started. I've been very fortunate to be around other people who are also passionate about, education, and also really good engineers. So right now our team is 16 people, and we're all engineers and educators. So that's how sort of the core of the company is built. And I think it's really important that we're really by educators for educators, and it's all about really addressing the pain points that are specific to education and giving really interesting solutions there. And the way we have been growing really is like, obviously getting to the number of that large team in a very short time period was like very interesting scaling, but it sort of just happened naturally because we're all just so inspired by the problem we're trying to solve, and also could relate to it. We're just living in space right now, all our meetings are there, so it just felt very natural kind of to grow to that point. And one of the things that's happening is we do a lot of demonstrations for different faculty who reached out to us. For example, early today I was talking to someone from the University of Utah, and now they're signed up with us. And then early in the week I was talking to someone from Hawaii, and it's just really cool, like in UK. And it's really fun how like everybody from around the world just finds out about Inspace and reaches out to us. But the cool thing is that it's sort of all our meetings turn into brainstorming sessions, and they immediately just like, oh, this feature would be really cool, and that. And we actually take those features, we incorporate it into the product. And now we actually have different features named after different professors who came up with those features. And in some ways, it's kind of a fun way of crowdsourcing the idea of what do educators need, and then just bringing it into a platform that we can all use together. Now, in terms of sort of the growth and where we're going with this, so right now, Inspace is solving a very critical need for connecting with students in virtual spaces. However, we also have, so we're focused on higher education, colleges and universities. However, we also just recently had another K-12 school sign up. It's a big school, chain school, and they were very motivated because, part of being in a K-12 is like understanding how to socially interact with other people. And the fact that you can actually move your circle and just go around and talk to people allows you to actually explore those interactions. And so it's really fun to see that. And we also have some people from events who reached out to us and our users. However, our main focus is colleges and universities and later K-12. That's kind of where we're staying focused. Now, post-COVID, there's a lot. It's kind of interesting. If you think about it, pandemic is the destruction, and however, the change is systemic. And a lot of us are noticing that it's been a really good way to pivot into moving to online and using the existing technology, because technology has been really growing quite a bit, and people have been sort of adapting it in education at certain levels. However, this was like a really interesting pivot to just, get more efficient with technology, and the tools themselves are getting better. And Inspace is a really good example of that as well. So what's going to happen is like, in the future, we of course don't know if there's going to be another pandemic or not, but we know that we have seasonal flu, for example. And so now we can just hop into virtual class for the time period instead of having students to choose between coming to classroom and getting everyone else sick versus, staying home and staying behind. So it's really interesting. And we're really not going to have snow days anymore because we can just hop on virtual and we don't have to make tough decisions between safety and efficiency of the learning. And I think that's really great. And we also see a future for online education where we can actually students can do online classes, but they can also connect as a community and do teamwork and project work using Inspace.
Yeah, Inspace is certainly here to stay, and I think it's only going to continue to grow as the word gets out, and it's evident by the sheer number of universities who've signed on in a very, very short space of time. So looking at that future growth, what are the skill sets and what future opportunities are there going to be for engineers and scientists and all of the people behind the scenes who've got it to this point? You're going to need to grow. You're going to need to bring in skilled people. What are you going to look for? And people who are interested in working on a platform like this, what's the opportunities for them?
Yeah, I think for us as a company, we have some core values that we really are, establishing in our company. And some of those are equity. For example, we're both women founders, and we would like to support women in tech and make sure that we always have sort of more equal division among different groups and minorities in a representation in our company. And so far, we're very successful. We're at 50-50, which is pretty rare in tech. I'm sure you all know. And I think there's going to be some really exciting opportunities because, we need more engineers and also data scientists. For example, on our platform, we're using machine learning in some interesting ways to make a more fluid user experience. So like users can interact more easily. For example, we use machine learning to separate the background noise from the foreground, so conversation, so it's more fluid experience. Our chat is actually using machine learning to identify when there's a toxic message from the context, not just filtering the words, and then it actually gives a warning and says, this is a toxic message. Are you sure you want to send this? And having things like that is really important because we're focusing on education environment, and we're using machine learning to make our education experience better and kind of more catered towards what we actually need in a classroom. I think there's a lot of interesting opportunities for growth. And I'm personally very passionate about data, and I love doing data science. I've been advising for startups for a while in data science strategy and how to get into it. And I know sometimes it can be a little bit intimidating to get into the field because in some ways you have to know quite a bit in different fields to be able to combine it into data science. But it's also very rewarding and fun. And, that's where the future is. And I think AI is going to really help us to automate quite a bit of the work, which is kind of what we have been successfully doing so far. And we can spend more of the human time on creative tasks and doing things that, we absolutely love rather than the more mundane work, right?
So yeah, completely agree, Narine. Thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate you giving us the insight and the history behind Inspace. What an exciting time and amazing journey in such a short period, and clearly a lot more to come. I think it's an inspiration to hear a startup that was born out of seeing a simple need and just giving it a go and stepping outside of your comfort zone, and the reaction has clearly been amazing. So we wish you all the best, and we look forward to helping you along that journey.
Thank you so much. And I encourage our listeners to check out Inspace at inspace.chat. You can actually sign up for an account and check it out and see how it works.
AI in Action is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Alldus offer an exec search program. Alldus can help you discover how data science and AI can transform your company. With our unrivaled network of C-suite executives and senior AI professionals, we offer retained search services across the US and Europe. Get the Alldus advantage. Become a member of the Alldus community and enjoy some of the following: AI meetups. Once a month, our community gathers to listen to some of the leading experts in the world of data science and AI. Our speakers come from all over the world, including Dublin, Boston, and Frankfurt. We also have our AI mentors. Our experts will provide mentoring to Alldus members. And don't forget our AI in Action podcast. Each week we have guests from all over the world talking us through their education, career and more. Become an Alldus member and get the Alldus advantage. For more information and to sign up for our newsletter, log on to www.alldus.com. That's www.alldus.com. Alldus International, empowering through AI.